CTV News with Colin DeMello and Andrea Case.
Well, dozens of women marched downtown University Avenue today to speak about sexual harassment and violence that they have experienced.
What started as a Twitter hashtag #MeToo has now grown into a bit of a movement. And today, women in Toronto are calling for action.
We are the ones.
Dozens of women with countless stories of sexual misconduct.
Any woman that you speak to here can look around and give you a dozen stories, hundreds of stories. It's like, do you want an example from last week, last month, yesterday?
Women from Toronto gathered just north of Queen's Park to say Me Too.
It means two things. Me Too as in I understand what these women who have come forward are talking about because it has happened to me too, but also Me Too because I stand with them and I want to support them.
This is what the movement looks like away from social media. Men and women marching together, embracing each other and their experiences.
Friends and allies, we must believe each other. We must listen and hold space for one another. It is never our fault. It is never our fault.
For many here, the recent cases of sexual misconduct becoming public have ignited a conversation.
I think what's surprising is the realization that it's that big, that it happens to women who are in positions of power just as much as it happens to women that are, regular like me.
What is apparent, many here say, is there needs to be better education about consent.
And it's not no means no, it's yes means yes. If there's no enthusiastic consent over what's happening, it shouldn't be happening.
Those conversations are happening, according to the province's Minister for the Status of Women, but there is room for more discussion.
On what level? On all levels. Everyone needs to be educated about how troubling this is, how hurtful it is, and how we all suffer.
It may take time to shift behaviors completely, but until then, they say common sense should take over.
Don't touch someone in a way that's maybe intimate if you don't really know them.
They hope something that simple can help put an end to unwanted interactions.
Today's gathering also included an active listening station where women and men were encouraged to speak about their experiences and the trauma involved.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Good evening, I'm Maribel Tarouk. About 250 women gathered for a hashtag #MeToo rally in Toronto today. They're demanding an end to sexual harassment and sexual assault in the workplace. As Lorenda Redicop tells us, it's an attempt to turn an online movement into real political change.
Today's rally and now march, it's all about that hashtag #MeToo and making it about more than just something that people see online. This is about raising their voices, talking about sexual assault and also harassment. We heard multiple speakers earlier in front of the Ontario legislature talking about their own experiences. One woman, she said she was just 7 years old when a family member raped her. It was incredibly emotional, and we could see tears in the audience. Now people are marching here to the front of City Hall. They want people all across the city to see them and hear that message. This is about, as I said, making this about more than just online. I also spoke with one woman earlier today, and she's an actor, and of course we did see this all start in the entertainment industry as so many women in the U.S. came out and spoke about what they say happened related to, first it was Harvey Weinstein, and the Indigenous actor I spoke with earlier, she said that something happened to her in the Canadian film industry. And she said before speaking with me, she'd never told her story before. She did have to speak with her family, let them know she was going to be coming forward. Take a listen.
When it's been brought to light in such a grand scale, it's really sickening. It's really sickening to see how many people have gone through this and how many perpetrators have gotten away with it. So Yeah, I think it's just really important for women and men alike to stand together to call these people out.
She called on organizations and also unions to take action and protect workers so that they don't have to experience this type of violence that we have been hearing about. Also, today is about really taking away the stigma when it comes to sexual assault and harassment. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
A march announcing sexual assault is making its way through Toronto streets, inspired by a two-word hashtag. I'm Faiza Amin. How the two-word campaign, Me Too, went from a social media hashtag to a worldwide movement. From a two-word social media hashtag to a worldwide movement denouncing sexual violence, harassment, and assault. I'm Faiza Amin in Toronto. It's here that the Me Too movement continues to tackle sexual misconduct and abuse. Today, it comes in the form of a march.
I am a survivor of sexual assault. I did report it. I pressed charges.
That case was dropped, says Jess Jans, as she holds a sign that reads, "Believe survivors." She says she felt let down by the system.
And that's not okay with me. So that's why I'm here, to let my voice be heard. If it's not through the judicial system, then it can be through my own personal voice through movements like this.
A number of others shared their stories today on the north lawn of Queen's Park before marching to Nathan Phillips Square.
When I told my mother my story, she believed me. She believed me.
It's a phrase that first emerged 10 years ago, but Me Too resurfaced recently as an online hashtag denouncing sexual assault and harassment, and has allowed for victims and survivors to share their stories.
It's time that we move away from clean activism. We got to get dirty, we got to get into the ground and really see our own biases, recognize our own histories, our own experiences, empathize with our sisters.
Though Me Too has been widely used, some say it hasn't been inclusive of all voices and communities.
The representation of people of color, of trans people, of homeless people, of sex workers is very low. Why is that? Because we're not believed about our sexual violence experiences. Please don't believe us. The society doesn't believe us.
What can we do to be more inclusive?
We need parliament, government, we need police, we need the justice system, our courts, to recognize these things also, and not to address these issues from more marginalized groups, from the embedded ideas that they have around who is deserving and who isn't, right? We need to change those ideas.
Those working in the field also in attendance today and say the conversation should also focus on increasing the visibility of support networks that are available to victims and survivors of sexual assault.
Continuing to amplify those voices and say, hey, in Toronto, we have people who are doing this work that are centered, that have been doing it for years, that act as support workers. And also having conversations about what justice actually looks like for folks, because sometimes it's not going to the police, right? So what other spaces can we cultivate where folks can get validated, get the support they need?
What do you think the role of government should be?
I'm here today to say we're with you, we stand beside you, and we're standing here to support you. But really, it's about government taking bold, courageous action too.
This isn't the first Me Too march. We've seen a similar one was held in LA early last month, where it was reported that thousands took to the street in support of sexual assault victims and survivors. In Toronto, I'm Faiza Amin for City News.
Tonight, sending a powerful message.
Saying Me Too, it kind of brings to light how many people have been affected.
The fight against sexual abuse highlighted by a march to inspire change.
You're watching Global Toronto. This is Global News at 11.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Me Too, it's a phrase that has come to light following a plethora of sexual assault allegations in recent months. Well, today in downtown Toronto, it was the site of a march to send a message about this topic. Our Erica Vela has more in tonight's top story.
It's been over a year.
Even though time has passed, Elizabeth Thorkelson says she's still living with the damage left behind from being sexually assaulted.
I get flashbacks still.
And that's why she's saying Me Too.
saying Me Too, it kind of brings to light how many people have been affected.
She isn't the only one.
Sharing our stories, it reminds us of the power in numbers.
On Saturday, dozens of people came to share stories of sexual harassment and assault.
Well, everyone's been in a situation either similar to rape or just sexual harassment, something that's made you feel unsafe, uncomfortable.
Of course, I have my own personal connection as a child survivor of sexual abuse. We got to believe people when they tell us what's going on.
The Me Too phrase started in 2006 by New York activist Tarana Burke. The hashtag rose to prominence back in October after actress Alyssa Milano posted this on Twitter. Me Too, suggested by a friend. If all women who have been sexually harassed or assaulted wrote Me Too as a status, we might give people a sense of the magnitude of the problem. The Me Too campaign, as well as allegations against several high-profile individuals, is the reason why these people will be marching to Nathan Phillips Square. We've spoken to several people with their own stories, and with every story comes a message.
I've been there. I've experienced it, and I haven't had the voice to say something then, and I wish I could. And Me Too, I'm going to stand with women. I'm going to be there to support you, and I'm going to give you that voice that you might not have had.
It's a march meant to inspire change.
This is a problem. We need to work together, and it's something that is not just a women's issue. It's an issue for all Ontarians, all Canadians, and all people.
And seeing that group of people coming together for the Me Too campaign has given Thorkelson hope for that very change.
You know, like, bring it out there, because for so long it's been in the dark and people have been too ashamed to talk about it.
A hope that it will shed light on an issue that people are no longer afraid to talk about. Erica Vela, Global News.
And stick around later in the show. We chat with a past victim who tells us why there may be a shift towards a zero-tolerance climate when it comes to sexual harassment and assault. Told you earlier in the show, more cases of sexual assault and misconduct have come to light recently. Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Matt Lauer, and most recently Greg Zahn are all facing allegations. And the expectation is there will be more names. So is this a sign that things are moving towards a zero-tolerance climate? Well, earlier this week, I spoke to Ann T. Donahue, a writer and author who's been very vocal about the issue on social media.
We are not putting up with as much, but I think it's also a little bit misleading in that I think for every big name that happens, we think that we're making like massive progress, and like some progress is being made, but this is a systemic issue that exists in every realm, in every industry. Also, I think it's about looking at enablers, looking at people who allow things to happen, who might be nervous when it comes to shaking up the machine, for lack of a better word, because I think that can seem intimidating. You don't want to be like a whistleblower or tattletale, et cetera, but that's how you dismantle something that's so ingrained in us.
You talked about courage. Now, when you had first put out your tweet when the Harvey Weinstein accusations came out, you wrote, "When did you meet your Harvey?" I'll go first. You brought yours out. I was 17 years old, co-op student. He insisted on massaging my shoulders as I typed. That tweet got thousands and thousands and thousands of retweets, responses, etc. You talked about courage. What do you think has changed since you sent that tweet out?
I think now, because so much of what's been happening is existing at such a large volume, the names are bigger, it is empowering in the sense of you're seeing results. And it's very exciting when you see results. But I think it can also be one of those things where you have to think about the results we're not seeing, which is the sad side of this whole spectrum. I mean, Franken still hasn't resigned. There's still a president in office with the Access Hollywood tape that we've all heard. There's countless incidences across all industries of abuse and harassment and assault. So I think if these big names and these big newsmakers instill power in us, that's wonderful. It will keep us acting, because I think that's what we need to basically keep going, because it's like we're staring at a mountain. And so far we have a handful of names to our credit. We have thousands to go.
Welcome aboard the Black Pearl.
Academy Award winner Jeffrey Rush is now the latest figure in the entertainment industry to be accused of inappropriate behavior. The complaint stems from Rush's starring role in an Australian theatre company's staging of King Lear 2 years ago. As a result, Rush has stepped down as president of Australia's Screen Industry Academy. He is, however, denying the accusation.